Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First, I would like to apologize for not being present with you in this international conference in honor of Dr. Mohammed Al-Didawi for some circumstances that are beyond my capacity. I would like also to welcome everyone in this room. Thank you very much for your presence, for your attendance, for your support, for your participation, for your fruitful and interesting contributions. I would like also to welcome Dr. Mohammed Didawi. Congratulations first for the publishing the recent book entitled فقه الترجمة وإعجاز النظم وإلغاز الفهم وإنجاز العلم. I would like also to seize this occasion to express my deep, heartfelt gratitude to him for his concern to the issue of Quran translation and for all what he did for the Arabic language in terms of translation studies. The title today of this presentation is Rethinking Quran Translation Towards a Religious Communicative Theory. It is a co-authored publication and presentation with my PhD student Nour-Elhouda BELGHITA, for whom I would like to congratulate her for her determination, for her contribution, and for all what she did to make this presentation and this paper as you will see now today. So the headlines of this presentation is a research objective, sacred text translation towards a religious communicative theory, henceforth RCT, the axiom of RCT, the four dogmas of the RCT, the two maxims of the RCT, the three strategies of the RCT, procedures, data analysis, discussion, and findings. There has recently been an increase in concern over the translation of the Quran. Most Quran translations based on Western theory have failed to render the appropriate meaning of the Quranic text and caused a lot of damage to its stylistic structure and miraculous component. Exegetes themselves may encounter many difficulties while interpreting its verses within the same language. Rendering the meaning of the Quranic text into other languages that are structurally, semantically, and culturally different from Arabic makes the task of translation more daunting and challenging. The research objective. The objective of this research is to present a theory whose major aim is to consider the specificity of Quran translation and focus more on the religious meaning and the pragmatic context of the Quranic text. It also aims at providing the translator with the useful guidelines to optimize the quality of Quran translation and to open a successful communication channel with the target readership. In other words, it is a theory that aspires to preserve the sacredness of the source text and at the same time the right of the target reader to have access to the religious information. In terms of sacred text translation, I would like to summarize these following slides by saying that we have some interesting questions that should be raised in this vein. What is sacredness? We have to determine sacredness. The term sacredness really is so important to deal with these texts because we are not asked only to translate their languages, their religious meaning, etc. We have also this sacredness feature that is so important to render it into the target language. We can say in terms of translation, it's a register in fact. This register of sacredness must be kept in the target text. We have also some questions related to the ideology, the religion, the background, the identity, the culture of translator, how all these facts can affect and can orient the translation process. Is it interesting to introduce some dogmas in sacred text translation, as we will see in this theory, some epistemological dogmas that a translator has to believe in before tackling translation process? So these are some questions that I see are so important to ask, but unfortunately we have some scholars who follows another stream of thought. They think that sacred text is no more than a normal text, is no more than a specialized text, which necessitates only a special training, which means that if a translator is well trained with such text, for Nodis, for instance, he thinks that he will not find any problem, any challenges, because it is a normal text. It requires only special training. So my comment on this approach is, how can we admit that a special training for sacred text translator can help him to tackle this challenging task, knowing that for the Quran, for instance, we have so many sciences, so many fields that all of them contribute in the understanding of the Quran within Arabic language, let alone to transfer all this knowledge to another language. For Nodis, for instance, a translator who can translate the Talmud can perfectly translate the Bible and without any problem can translate the Quran, which is not the case. Now I move to another headline, which is towards a religious communicative theory. I will start with the spirit of this theory. This theory is founded on Guti's approach, and I seize this occasion here to say that it is not Schleiermacher who was the first evoking the issue of the author and the target reader, who brings who. It is Guti's before 4 months who was the first, and I see that Guti's approach is well expressed. This is why I have adopted rather than adopted Schleiermacher. So the quotation of Guti says that there are two maxims in translation. One requires that the author of a foreign nation be brought across to us in such a way that we can look at him as ours. The other requires that we should go across to what is foreign and adapt ourselves to its condition, its use of language, its peculiarities. I think that Guti's approach can serve as a solid ground to start from to deal with Quran translation. Now, the components of the RCT, which is the religious communicative theory, we have so many components. I will start with the first component, which is the foundation on which this theory has been built, which is the axiom of Quran Miraculous. So the Quran Miraculous is the axiom on which the RCT has been built. So an axiom, as it is defined in so many exact sciences, is one of a select set of propositions presumed true by a system of logic, or a theory from which all other propositions which the system or theory endorses as true are deducible. It is an evident premise that has been proved throughout the centuries. Just between brackets, I would like to say that this Quran Miraculous, I would like in this presentation, and it is an opinion that I hope that a lot of scholars follow me in believing in that the Quran Miraculous is not something that we needed in translation process, because the Miraculous of the Quran is limited within the Arabic language, and also it is limited in the time of revelation. It is like a miracle of that the Prophet needs it to convince the people who were at the peak of the eloquence. They don't believe in anything except eloquence, so they need a book which defeats them. And also, you know that the Quran challenges the Arabs at the time to imitate the Quran within the smallest verse, but they failed to do that. So the Quran Miraculous is not something that we need it. Yes, we need it only if there is a religious meaning there. But for instance, وَاشْتَعَلَ الرَّأْسُ شَيْبًا وَقِيلَ يَا أَرْضُ بْلَعِي مَاءَكِ. These verses are classified as the top, the peak of Arabic eloquence. But if we stick to this Arabic eloquence, I think that we will miss the most important thing, which is the communicative function of translation. Now, the second component of the religious communicative theory is the four dogmas. Here we have to believe, before tackling Quran translation, believe in four dogmas, which are: first is Quran translational miraculous, linguistic dogma, Sharia dogma, and culture dogma. We mean by dogma a common belief shared by a group of people. And when I say that it is a common belief, I would like to underline that it's not a metaphysical belief. It is a belief that has been proved and accumulated throughout the time. So it becomes like a premise in which it is well proved, and a lot of evidence surrounding this premise. So there is no way to reject it. It is there. It is there, like the sun, like the earth, like everything that we see with our eyes, and we don't need to carry on such argumentation to convince people. So these four dogmas are so important in Quran translation. And the role of these four dogmas is to make the translator conscious about his or her strategic decisions. So in the light of this dogma, the translator can choose between any approach, between any strategy, between any procedures. So according to this dogma, you can choose what is the right strategic decision in each context. Let's start by the first dogma, which is the QTMD, Quran Translational Miraculous Dogma. So this dogma resides in language, in style, in rhetoric, in structure. And we know that no one can pretend among the translators that what he produces is like a substitution for the original text. The second dogma is the linguistic sciences, which are vital to grasp the Arabic language. The more the translator is knowledgeable in these linguistic sciences, the more she minimizes the loss in the translated text. The Quranic language is a special register of Arabic language that can be understood only through the linguistic dogma. And here also I would like to put emphasis on, when I said that the translator has to be bilingual, I don't mean by bilingual the superficial Arabic that can be served only in communication process. You have to come back to علوم اللغة, نحو, صرف, balagha, a lot of sciences really that can help to understand first the Quran within the Arabic language, and second, to guide you and to enlighten your path to know how can this meaning can be rendered in the target language. The third dogma is the Sharia dogma. In those, the Quran translation with the credibility it often fails to hold. Quran translation should be rendered in the target language in the light of Sharia sciences, such as علوم الفقه, أصول الفقه, الناسخ والمنسوخ, علم المناسبات, and so many others. I think that we have more than 30 fields that all of them they contribute, as I said, to understand the Holy Quran in the language of revelation, and also they are so important in rendering this message to the target language. The Sharia dogma helps you to, especially the translator, to know that the Quran is not on the same, let's say, on the same register, all the verses are the same. No, we have three categories. We have Ayat al-Aqidah, we have al-Ibadat, we have al-Mu'amalat. And we cannot understand all these Ayat al-Aqidah wal-Ibadat wal-Mu'amalat without referring to a Sharia dogma and to a linguistic dogma. The fourth dogma is the cultural aspect of the Quran cannot be understood or translated outside the Arabic culture. Culture is so important in translating human speech, let alone in translating the Quran, which is written with the ancient Arabic, and a lot of saying and words, they are no longer used by people now. And you have to check them in the dictionary, you have to dig to find the right meaning. So culture is so important also to take it into consideration in Quran translation. So from my brief research and in my last co-authored article also with my PhD students, Nour-Elhouda, we have tried to redefine domestication in literary text. And we have divided culture into two categories: culture within language and culture as a subject of language. Now we have the axiom, as I said, we have four dogmas. Now we have in the third component of the theory, we have the two maxims of this theory. The maxim is an established principle or proposition. It is also a premise that we have to believe in. It is something that has been accumulated and proved. So the two maxims of this theory is the religious maxim and the communicative maxim. You have to believe first that the Quran is a religious book. It holds a religious meaning. And we have to believe in that this target reader, whatso this target reader is, has the right to access to the information. So how can we render this religious meaning to that target reader, knowing that this book is a miracle book? There is a Quran translation and Miraculous there. This is why I told before that this Miraculous aspect is not important to preserve in the target language unless it holds a religious meaning. So what is the role of this religious maxim and where it occurs? It occurs where one tries to be as a messenger as one possibly can and gives as much religious meaning as should be. So from my point of view, the translator in this case, he is a successor, he is a follower of the Prophet. He is a messenger, but the only difference is that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, peace be upon him, the Quran has been revealed to him and in a specific time and place. The translator, no, he has this religious, he has this book between his hands in a different time and a different place. But he is a messenger. He speaks in the name of first Allah and second the Prophet. So he has a message that he has to preserve. So he has to try to be messenger as possible as he can and gives as much as he can a religious meaning as should be. The CM, which is the communicative maxim, occurs when one tries to be a communicator and communicate the message according to the nature of the religious meaning and the type of the verse, which is the right of the target reader. Briefly, the religious maxim can be applied in al-aqidah, al-ibadat, al-mu'amalat, and the CM can be applied only to tone down the Quranic miraculous and to express, to preserve the sacredness of at the expense of the target reader, but aspires at the same time to provide the target readership with an intelligible message. Here we have, beside this maxim, the maxim and the dogmas and the two maxims, we have the three strategies for Quran translation that I see are so important to deal with in translating the Quran. The first strategy is foreignization. This foreignization aims to bring the target reader towards the source text, namely in the verse of Al-Aqidah and Al-Ibadat. The second strategy is domestication, aims to bring the source text towards the target reader in all what is shared between the source culture, and the target culture, namely in Al-Mu'amalat. So we can see that we can apply foreignization in Al-Aqidah and Al-Ibadat, and we can apply domestication in Al-Mu'amalat, but with only one condition, as I said, if it doesn't hold in a religious meaning. Then we have the third that we have introduced here, we have coined this term, which is the conveyance strategy, as a translation of at-tabligh. And we know that the Prophet was muballigh, Al-Quran is a message of balagh, etc. So the notion of tabligh is a cornerstone in the Islamic literature. So the conveyance strategy aims to tone down the QTMD and producing a tangible and acceptable target text. So this is the diagram showing foreignization, Aqidah, Ibadat, domestication and Mu'amalat, and convenience in Quran Miraculous. The last component of the RCT, the religious communicative theory, is procedures. And procedures, as we know, we can say that the strategy is much bigger. It can be applied on the text, but the procedure is less than a strategy. We can apply it at the level of ayah or sentence. It can be applied on the smallest units of language. So our postulate in this theory is not to limit the number of procedures as listed by Vinay and Darbinik and Newmark. Our postulate, however, is to keep the procedure list open to invent some other procedures relevant to Quran translation. I call researchers to work on procedures because all what already exists in translation field cannot be certainly applicable or cannot fit or cannot be at the horizon of the expectation of the translator. He has to create some new procedures in correlation to each text, to each verse, and to each case. The limited corpus of this study reveals the possibility of creating some, as I said, translation techniques adequate to Quran translation, such as, for instance, a religious equivalence. This religious equivalence, which is different from formal, which focus on form and the content, and different from the dynamic equivalence, which focus on the target reader. So the religious equivalence focus on the context of zero translation, which means that we don't have any equivalence and alternative in the target culture. So this diagram shows the whole component of the theory. And now I will move straight forward to end my, for time reason, to end my presentation, my co-authored presentation with my PhD students, Nour-Elhouda BELGHITA, with a sample in which I will apply domestication as a strategy, and I will also apply a new technique which I see it's relevant in Quran translation. But all this analysis, let's say, in the light of the axiom of Quran Miraculous and the 4 dogmas and the 2 maxims. So the sample is أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه. You see that the translation, the English translations of this verse all provide the same structure, which is literal translation, which is foreignization. In fact, it is a foreignized translation. Would any of you desire to eat the flesh of his dead brother? Would any one of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? Would any one of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother dead, etc.? So, أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه. The Quranic verse is a metaphorical expression that the Almighty uses to describe a person who backbites another. To mention the honor of someone is like to eat his flesh. Arabs at the time of revelation were familiar with this kind of metaphorical expression. To grasp the meaning of this metaphor, the translator has to be not only bilingual but bicultural too. In short, she should resort to the cultural, sharia, and linguistic epistemological dogmas that will provide her with the original context to grasp fully this metaphorical expression. No one can understand this verse outside the axiom of Quran Miraculous, outside the four dogmas, in order to what? To, let's say, to preserve the religious maxim and to preserve the communicative maxim of his translation. As you see, the foreignization strategy adopted here appears inadequate and awkward for the translation of the verse, which makes its meaning sounds incomprehensible and alien to the target language. It makes the target reader under a cultural shock, pushing him to think that the Islamic religion is a religion of cannibalism, which is not the case. In the RCT, culture is divided into two major categories: culture within language, culture as a subject of language. The verse which belongs to Al-Mu'amalat category is a typical sample illustrating culture within language. The domestication strategy seems to be adequate and useful in translating the metaphorical expression in this sample. To establish a successful communicative act, the translator has to share this image with the target reader without any cultural shock or linguistic alienation. The most efficient procedure to render this image is translation by sense, which is a technique that we present to sort out this question, in which the translator has to convey only the intended meaning fluently and transparently. In the light of RCT, referring to the communicative maxim, using translation by sense as a procedure, this verse could be translated as follows. Would any one of you like to be backbitten by his brother? Surely you would abhor it. Would any one of you like to be backbitten by his brother? Surely you wouldn't abhor it. So I come to the end of this communication. I hope that I share with you some major ideas. And thank you very much for your listening, and thank you for lending me your ears, and hopefully to meet you in our forthcoming conferences or somewhere. Thank you very much.